Why do they even allow these actors to be so active on social media?
Just when it seemed like things might finally be quieting down for Rachel Zegler, Hollywood reminded everyone that no story truly dies. It just waits for the next spark.
I thought that she was, the one good part of Snow White.
And that spark came in the form of a quiet Instagram story. No direct callouts. No dramatic captions. Just a reposted quote that the internet immediately interpreted as shade. Suddenly, Zegler was at the center of a brand new controversy, and the source wasn't an executive, a critic, or a headline. It was her former co-star, Ariana DeBose. That's right. The same Ariana who once stood beside Rachel on red carpets, celebrated West Side Story together, and was seen as part of her rise. So, why was her name now tied to what many were calling a subtle betrayal? The post, while now deleted, spread like wildfire within hours. It wasn't even about what was said, it was about who had said it first. The quote that DeBose shared had originally been used by Jonah Platt, son of Snow White producer Mark Platt, and he didn't mince words when he posted it. He'd accused Zegler of being narcissistic and suggested that her outspoken political views, particularly around sensitive topics like the Israel-Palestine conflict, were doing real damage to the Snow White project. That's a big claim coming from someone whose family is financially tied to the film. So, when DeBose reposted the exact same quote, fans were quick to connect the dots. Was it an accident? A coincidence? Or was Ariana signaling something more? It didn't matter what the intent was. The interpretation was already locked in. Theories started flooding in on Reddit threads, in Twitter/X Spaces, even in YouTube live streams. People pulled up receipts, past interviews, body language breakdowns from red carpet events. They reminded everyone that Zegler had previously replaced DeBose in a production of Evita, and that rumors of tension between the two had been simmering just below the surface for over a year. So when this seemingly innocent repost happened, it was like dropping a match on a pile of dry brush. The drama reignited instantly, fueled by months of pent-up speculation and unresolved tension. And here's the kicker. Rachel Zegler didn't even do anything this time. She didn't post. She didn't comment. She didn't clap back. But because of her history, her reputation, and the very fragile public perception she's accumulated throughout the Snow White controversy, her name was dragged into yet another digital storm by someone else's fingertips. That's how volatile her image has become. That's how closely people are watching every interaction, every subtext, every half-hearted emoji. And in a world where careers can be shaped or shattered by perception, that's not just a PR headache. That's a branding nightmare. Let's dig into the quote that ignited this latest wildfire, because on its own, it might not have raised eyebrows. But in context, it was a loaded grenade. The quote was one of those classic accountability posts, something vague and philosophical, the kind of thing that could pass as a daily affirmation or a passive-aggressive jab depending on the mood. But what made it explosive was its origin. Just a few days earlier, the same quote had been posted by Jonah Platt, who didn't leave much room for interpretation. He was talking about Rachel Zegler, directly. In his version of events, Zegler wasn't just being passionate or politically engaged. She was being careless, unprofessional, and damaging to the very project she was hired to promote. So when Ariana DeBose, a fellow actress with direct ties to both Zegler and the broader Disney machine, reposted that exact same quote, people noticed. And they didn't just notice, they reacted. Immediately. Within minutes, screenshots were flying across Twitter/X, TikTok creators were narrating the drama, and YouTubers were going live to break down what they were calling the biggest celebrity backstab of the month. No exaggeration. The internet thrives on symbolism, and this post was bursting with it. A quote that had already been used to criticize Zegler, a co-star with a rumored history of friction. And timing that couldn't have been more suspicious. Was it an honest mistake? Possibly. DeBose would later claim that she had no idea where the quote originally came from or how it had been used just days earlier. But even if we take her at her word, it's hard to ignore how incredibly unlucky the optics were. Fans weren't convinced. They'd been watching this narrative build for months, and for them, This post felt like the final confirmation of something they'd long suspected, that not everyone in Zegler's circle was still in her corner. Even more revealing was how quickly the situation escalated. By the time DeBose deleted the story, it had already been archived, screen captured, re-uploaded, and dissected by thousands of users. The deletion itself only added to the drama. If it was truly innocent, why remove it? Why not just add context or clarify? Her follow-up statement, which claimed she didn't mean to get involved and regretted the misunderstanding, came off to some as damage control rather than sincere regret. Whether fair or not, her explanation didn't stop the narrative from spreading. In fact, it may have solidified it. This is the double-edged sword of social media in 2025. It gives celebrities unprecedented direct access to fans, but also zero room for error. One poorly timed repost can be interpreted as a digital dagger. And when your audience is already emotional, already skeptical, and already primed to look for drama, well, even silence can speak volumes. In this case, a quote meant to sound introspective turned into the loudest noise on the internet, and Zegler, yet again, was at the center of it, whether she wanted to be or not. Here's where things take a sharper turn. The quote Ariana DeBose reposted wasn't just some motivational fluff floating around the internet. It had real history behind it. Jonah Platt, son of Snow White producer Mark Platt, had already used that exact same line to take direct aim at Rachel Zegler. This wasn't subtle. This wasn't a vague jab. Jonah had publicly accused Zegler of being a liability to the film, going so far as to label her behavior narcissistic and implying that her political commentary had created real damage for the movie's chances at success. This wasn't just a fan theory. Jonah's connection to the film wasn't distant. He's the son of the man producing the entire thing. So even though he wasn't speaking officially, his comments carried weight. People started to ask, if he's saying this publicly, what are people behind closed doors thinking? Could Rachel actually be jeopardizing the film from the inside out? Jonah's post hit a nerve because it was the first time someone close to the production voiced what a lot of fans, and probably Disney executives, were quietly wondering. And let's not forget the timing. Jonah made his comment at a peak moment in the backlash against Zegler. Public opinion had already been tilting against her thanks to her dismissive remarks about the original Snow White and her now infamous interviews about how the story needed to be revolutionized. Combine that with her polarizing political stances online, especially her Palestine-related tweets, and suddenly you had a situation where even people involved in the project were distancing themselves from the star. So when Ariana, unknowingly or not, shared Jonah's quote, she wasn't just sharing a random thought. She was echoing a message that had already been used to call Rachel out. And the internet remembered. They always do. The archives were pulled. Screenshots were shared. And before long, people started suggesting that maybe DeBose wasn't so neutral after all. Maybe Jonah said what others were afraid to. Maybe this wasn't just one man's opinion. It was the beginning of a shift in how people inside the industry viewed Zegler. For a movie that already felt unstable, this moment mattered. It wasn't a tabloid story or a YouTube theory. It was a family member of the production team publicly laying the blame at the feet of the film's lead actress. And now, thanks to Ariana's accidental echo, that message had a second life and way more reach. When a celebrity posts something controversial, the public usually falls into two camps: the ones who think it was intentional and the ones who chalk it up to coincidence. But in Ariana DeBose's case, it seemed like no one was buying the accident narrative. The repost didn't happen in a vacuum. It happened in the middle of a swirling storm of Rachel Zegler-related drama. The quote had baggage, and fans instantly recognized it. So even though DeBose didn't write a single word of her own, the repost was treated like a full-blown statement. People read between the lines. And what they saw was a jab at Zegler, subtle, passive-aggressive, but unmistakable. The idea that Ariana had accidentally reposted a quote so closely tied to Zegler criticism? Let's just say, the internet wasn't buying it. Within hours, entire TikTok breakdowns were being uploaded dissecting the post, comparing it to Jonah Platt's original, and theorizing about Ariana's motive. People dug up old clips from interviews, side-eye glances at red carpet events, and every whisper of backstage tension between the two actresses. One viral tweet read, "Ariana knew what she was doing. The girls always know." This interpretation hit especially hard because it wasn't just about a single quote, it was about timing, context, and history. DeBose and Zegler were once co-stars, yes, but they've also been linked by whispers of rivalry ever since Zegler reportedly replaced DeBose in a major production. Combine that with the rumors of creative tension, and suddenly, this repost wasn't just a quote, it was fuel on the fire. And this is the thing. Even if Ariana didn't mean to shade Rachel, perception is reality online. The moment the public interpreted it as a dig, the narrative was locked in. It no longer mattered what DeBose's intent was. What mattered was that people believed it was intentional. And once that belief took hold, it was impossible to put the genie back in the bottle. The comments started piling up. "Not Ariana joining the anti-Zegler camp," one person wrote. "She said it without saying it," said another. This wasn't speculation anymore. It was a public verdict. In a world where celebrity feuds are dissected like crime scenes, Ariana's post became the newest clue. And whether she wanted to or not, she was now part of the Zegler saga, just by clicking share. This isn't the first time whispers of drama between Rachel Zegler and Ariana DeBose have circulated, but the reposted quote brought all of it roaring back. And fans didn't need much prompting to start piecing it together. You see, their story doesn't start with Snow White. It goes back to West Side Story, and even further into stage productions that both actresses were linked to. In particular, the moment that lit a lot of this fuse was Zegler reportedly taking over a role in Evita that many believed was originally intended for DeBose. While never publicly confirmed, industry chatter suggested that the casting swap didn't sit well with Ariana or her fans. Now, fast forward to today, and that past is being viewed through a whole new lens. Ariana's repost wasn't just a bad coincidence. It was, to many, a resurfacing of long-simmering tension. People pointed out how the two haven't interacted publicly in a long time, haven't acknowledged each other's wins or roles, and seemed to carefully avoid one another at recent events. When you're in the spotlight, silence becomes part of the story, and in this case, it screamed. Fans began pulling old footage, analyzing their body language during interviews, and resurrecting Reddit threads from over a year ago speculating on their relationship. Suddenly, the narrative shifted from accidental repost to subtle revenge. Whether it was fair or not didn't matter. The storyline was too compelling, and in pop culture, perception always wins over fact. And the real twist? Even though Ariana deleted the post and clarified her intent, it didn't undo any of the damage. The history was already back on the table. The idea that these two powerful, talented women might have quietly been clashing behind the scenes was just too juicy to ignore. And that's exactly what fueled the fire. Now, every interaction, or lack thereof, between them will be scrutinized even more closely. Every red carpet, every panel, every comment will be viewed through this lens of, are they still feuding? For Rachel, it's another layer of drama she didn't ask for, but can't escape. And for Ariana, whether she meant it or not, she's now seen as someone who added fuel to a fire that was barely under control. As the backlash exploded, Ariana DeBose quickly did what any public figure would in the age of internet hypersurveillance. She deleted the post. But by the time her finger hit delete, the internet had already screen captured, archived, and distributed it like wildfire. In fact, some fans joked that the deletion only confirmed their suspicions. After all, if it really was innocent, why remove it? That one move shifted the narrative from, maybe it was a mistake, to she knew exactly what she was doing. It was no longer just about a quote. It was about the cover-up, or at least the perception of one. DeBose tried to clarify her intentions, stating she had no idea where the quote originated or that it had previously been used by Jonah Platt to attack Rachel Zegler. She expressed regret over the misunderstanding and claimed she never meant to involve herself in any online discourse surrounding the Snow White controversy. But the apology felt clinical. It read like damage control, not an emotional statement of solidarity or support. And while that's understandable in a high-stakes industry like entertainment, it didn't exactly win back the skeptical public. People picked the statement apart. Why now? Why so fast? If she didn't mean to take sides, why hadn't she just added clarification before deleting it? Some even accused her of trying to dodge accountability, using ignorance as a shield. The irony? DeBose had built her public persona on being outspoken and unapologetically real. So this measured, PR-polished response didn't align with the version of her that fans thought they knew. Meanwhile, the deletion didn't erase the narrative, it amplified it. Screenshots of the original post circulated even harder. TikToks were being made about the apology before it had even been seen by most people. The drama had already outpaced the damage control. And in the age of digital receipts, taking something down doesn't make it go away. If anything, it makes it trend harder. For Rachel Zegler, the damage was already done. The narrative had reached her name again. The spotlight was back on her, and now it included yet another figure from her professional orbit seeming to take a side. And for Ariana, the post-deletion period didn't just mark the end of a mistake. It marked her official entry into a larger story she probably hoped to avoid. She had stepped into the Zegler discourse, whether she wanted to or not, and the internet had already assigned her a role in the drama. Even after Ariana DeBose's clarification, the online reaction didn't cool off, it intensified. And that's the fascinating thing about celebrity culture in 2025. Once the internet decides a narrative, it doesn't really matter what the truth is. The story writes itself, and any attempt to shift it is often seen as proof that the original theory was correct. In this case, people weren't just reacting to the post, they were reacting to what the post symbolized. They saw it as evidence of real, ongoing tension between DeBose and Zegler, and no amount of PR backpedaling could stop the speculation avalanche. Across Twitter/X, TikTok, and YouTube, the theories got louder. One TikTok with over 500,000 views broke down the drama like a courtroom case, citing Exhibit A as the quote, Exhibit B as the deletion, and Exhibit C as their past awkward red carpet interactions. The creator ended the video with a now viral punchline: Hollywood isn't high school. It's Mean Girls with millions of followers. It summed up exactly how viewers were interpreting this feud, like an unfolding soap opera with real-world stakes. Meme culture kicked into high gear. Within 24 hours of the deletion, memes were everywhere. Some joked that Ariana had soft-launched her villain arc, while others called her the Regina George of Broadway. Hashtags like #Ariana said it, #Zegler vs. DeBose, and #EvitaGate trended intermittently throughout the day, drawing even more attention to the drama. Even fans who didn't care about Snow White were suddenly invested in what had started as a seemingly harmless story repost. Commentary channels jumped in too. YouTubers who cover celebrity gossip started pushing out reaction videos with titles like DeBose throws shade at Zegler and what Ariana really meant with that post. These videos, often more speculation than fact, still racked up hundreds of thousands of views. Why? Because audiences weren't just interested in the apology, they wanted a story, a feud, a narrative they could dissect and take sides in. And let's be honest, the speed of this firestorm had as much to do with timing as content. With Zegler already under scrutiny and Snow White sitting in the middle of one of Disney's worst PR spirals, this new incident felt like yet another example of how chaotic the whole production, and everyone involved in it, had become. It wasn't just Ariana's quote that caused the explosion. It was everything that came before it. Her post was the trigger, but the fuse had been burning for months. It's no secret that Rachel Zegler's public image has taken hit after hit, but this latest flare-up dragged something back into the spotlight that had previously simmered under the surface: her political activism. While Zegler has been vocal about numerous social issues, gender equity, industry reform, representation, it was her outspoken stance on the Israel-Palestine conflict that generated some of the loudest and most polarizing responses. In the past, she had tweeted her support for Palestine during a peak moment in the conflict, a move that earned her praise from some and sharp criticism from others. That tweet, in particular, resurfaced in full force during the latest drama. Commentary channels began referencing it again. Twitter/X threads were built around it. People started framing the entire Jonah Platt quote and Ariana DeBose's repost as indirect pushback to that very political moment. Whether or not it was true, the narrative stuck. Critics began tying Zegler's political expression to her professional fallout, arguing that she was biting the hand that feeds her, or using a Disney platform for personal agendas. It's a tricky, uncomfortable intersection: celebrity activism and corporate PR. On one hand, many applaud actors for using their platform to speak out about real-world issues. But on the other, studios like Disney are notoriously sensitive about controversy, especially when it involves geopolitics. The fact that Zegler's public statements, made on her own time, on her own platforms, are now being weaponized against her shows just how unforgiving this industry can be when personal and professional lines blur. Worse still, the internet isn't interested in nuance. No one's looking at the timeline or reading full interviews. They're looking for conflict. So Zegler's political stances aren't being debated in good faith anymore. They're being used as bullet points in a takedown campaign. And with the Snow White movie already branded as woke, critics have lumped her tweets into a larger narrative about the downfall of Disney's remake empire. In essence, her political views, which may have been unrelated to the production, are now a central part of the conversation around the film. And that makes things messy. Because no matter how legitimate her beliefs are, no matter how many people agree with her, they've become part of the brand she represents. And for better or worse, that brand is tied to one of the most controversial, over-scrutinized projects Disney has ever greenlit. At this point, it's impossible to separate the Hollywood drama from the internet's obsession with turning everything into a public courtroom. This isn't just a story about two actresses anymore. It's about how modern celebrity culture works. The Ariana-Rachel situation is a textbook example of what happens when real-life tension collides with meme culture, speculation, and a 24/7 commentary machine that never sleeps. And if there's one thing the internet loves more than a good redemption arc, it's a juicy feud with just enough ambiguity to keep people guessing. Let's be real. This whole mess, from the reposted quote to the swift deletion and half-hearted clarification, could have easily been a 24-hour blip. But thanks to the internet's tendency to latch on, remix, and escalate, it became something way bigger. The drama became a participatory event. Fans weren't just watching, they were part of it. They created TikToks, launched Twitter threads, built entire video essays breaking down every interaction between Zegler and DeBose going back years. Some fans even role-played the feud in comment sections like they were scripting the next season of a streaming drama. And Hollywood knows this. Publicists, studios, and agents are now working in a landscape where online perception shapes everything. One social media moment can undo months of careful marketing. One misinterpreted post can spark a PR meltdown. This is why Ariana's repost matters more than it should, because it happened in a space where people are conditioned to look for shade, drama, and deeper meaning in everything. Especially when it comes from celebrities known for being outspoken and bold, like both DeBose and Zegler. The result? A narrative spiral that sucked in fans, media, and industry insiders alike. People weren't just curious about whether DeBose meant to shade Zegler. They were actively choosing sides. Ariana was either the queen of subtle clapbacks or an innocent caught in the algorithm's crosshairs. Rachel was either a misunderstood advocate for change or a cautionary tale of what happens when celebrity branding collides with controversy. And because there was no definitive answer, the conversation never really ended. It just mutated. This is the new Hollywood battleground, where offhand posts carry as much weight as press junkets, and where the line between authenticity and strategy has completely blurred. One slip, one quote, one screen grab can become legend. And that's exactly what happened here. The quote lives on, not just as a moment in a story, but as a symbol of everything that can go wrong when celebrity drama meets internet culture at full speed. If you step back and look at the big picture, it's kind of unbelievable how much drama has followed Snow White 2025 before it's even hit theaters. And Rachel Zegler? She's somehow at the center of almost all of it. From her polarizing interviews about rewriting the princess myth, to feuding rumors with Gal Gadot, to now getting caught in digital crossfire with Ariana DeBose, it's been one headline after another. The DeBose repost might seem small in isolation, But when added to the growing pile of controversies, it feels like another crack in the foundation of Zegler's once bright public image. And that's what makes this so brutal. Because Zegler was supposed to be the future, the new face of Hollywood. She came onto the scene with talent, charisma, and a kind of refreshing confidence. But somehow, that confidence has been reframed. Now, instead of bold, critics call her arrogant. Instead of principled, they say she's divisive. It's not just a PR problem, it's a perception problem. One that Disney, by all accounts, is struggling to fix. Quietly canceling her talk show appearances, limiting interviews, and hoping things blow over hasn't helped. If anything, it's made her seem even more radioactive. So what happens now? The stakes couldn't be higher. If Snow White 2025 tanks, it won't just be blamed on box office trends or fatigue over remakes. The story will be that it was sunk by its lead, that the controversy became bigger than the film, that audiences never got past the noise. And that's a devastating narrative to attach to someone still so early in her career. Zegler's next few moves, what she says, what she doesn't say, what she posts will matter. A lot. The worst part? No one knows what version of Zegler the public will accept anymore. The fierce advocate? The silent company woman? The self-aware actress trying to win people back? Each comes with risk. Each has already been criticized. That's the real cost of all this drama. It's not just that the film might flop, it's that the backlash may have fundamentally reshaped how people see Rachel Zegler. And in Hollywood, once the narrative turns against you, it's a long, uphill battle to rewrite it. So as we wait for Snow White's release, there's a strange tension in the air. Everyone's watching, not for the movie itself, but to see if it survives the storm. To see if Zegler can rise above the chaos, or if the internet has already written her ending. One thing's for sure, when your public persona becomes the plot twist, the actual film starts to feel like a footnote.